Welcome to Make Peace with Food. I'm your host, Emily LaVoie, a certified eating psychology coach. I own a virtual private practice, and I work with clients all over the world, one-on-one and in group programs, to help heal their relationship with food and improve body image. Here at Make Peace with Food, we believe food is not your enemy, that eating should be fun and bring you joy and pleasure, not stress and guilt. To keep this a safe space, I will try my best to avoid mentioning numbers like calories and weight, as well as other potentially triggering content, but you know yourself best, so please avoid any episode topics that may not feel helpful to where you're at in your healing journey. This podcast is for educational and entertainment purposes. It's not a replacement for medical or mental health advice, diagnosis, or treatment, nor does it provide a client or patient relationship. Consult your own provider on any changes you're thinking about making. Today's episode is brought to you by my one-on-one coaching. If you're curious about becoming a client and want to learn more about what it looks and feels like to receive support in healing your relationship with food and improving your body image, go to my website, emily-lavoie.com, to schedule a free 30-minute Zoom consultation. Welcome to episode 8. Don't forget to sign up for the Sticker of the Month Club. If you like stickers, go to my Patreon. That's been really exciting for me. And I got a lot of messages from the people who received last month's sticker about how much they enjoyed just getting like a fun surprise little piece of mail. A little update about what's been going on in my life. At my house, my husband and I live on a river, and this is a really exciting time of the year for us because at time of recording, we just got our dock in the water and our boat is officially in the water and at our house. So that's sort of like the kickoff of summer, and we know we're going to be going on boat rides and enjoying the water and meeting up with friends and hanging out, and we just really look forward to that. So something that I'm super excited about. Today's episode, I'm going to be talking about how numbers are triggering. And so if you're here and you're listening, I'm kind of assuming that you're either my mom, hi mom, shout out to my mom, or you are working or interested in learning about healing your relationship with food. You might be struggling with an unwanted eating habit. You might be listening because you realize that, your body image is not in a great place and you're trying to improve that. So I'm so glad that you're here. And for most people who struggle with food and eating challenges, who maybe don't have a great relationship with exercise or fitness or working out, meaning that they typically are using movement as a form of punishment for something that they ate, or they're trying to quote unquote earn the food that they're eating, or they're using exercise to try to change their body's appearance, specifically their body's weight, size, shape. Or if a person is struggling with poor body image, like all of the above, most of the time, these people are very triggered by numbers. Speaking from my own experience, I was incredibly triggered by numbers, and something that can be very helpful, something super important, and a lot of times mandatory in the process of transforming your relationship with food, improving your body image, healing your relationship with exercise and movement, is to kind of set some boundaries around numbers in order to not be triggered by numbers. So instead of giving like this whole enormous explanation, I'm just going to dive in similarly to the way that I explain this when I'm explaining it to a client. So I hope you get a lot out of it. Okay. In front of me, I have a stapler, a coffee cup, and like a fanny pack purse. All of these items are essentially tools or devices, and we utilize them, and they kind of help make our life easier in a way. So a stapler is a tool that helps us like organize papers in a more easy way. My coffee cup is a device that holds a drink and allows me to easily drink coffee in a neat way without hopefully spilling it all over myself, keeping it warm. And then my fanny pack is just like an easy way for me to get around without like having to walk around town with my hands overflowing with all of the stuff that my fanny pack I utilize it to carry things in an easy way for me. So out of those three, pick whichever one you want. So your choices are a stapler, a coffee cup, and a fanny pack. I'm going to choose the stapler. That's the device or the tool I'm going to choose to talk about. So you can pick the stapler you want if you want, or you can pick one of the other two. Doesn't matter to me. Do we agree that they're all three tools or devices that help make our life easier? Yes. Okay, cool. So I've got the stapler in my hand, actually. So this is going to help me talk about it. This stapler is a device. It's a tool. It probably costs, I don't know, prices of everything are going up these days. Probably costs $5 or somewhere around there. If I'm way off on the cost, you guys will let me know. So we use this stapler to hold papers together and keep papers more organized. And okay, would you, let's talk about you specifically, would you ever let this stapler make or break your day? Probably not. If it broke, you would just like go on Amazon and order a new one. It'd be on your doorstep probably tomorrow. Like they break, not that big of a deal. Would you ever let this stapler decide what you're going to eat today? Would you let this stapler decide if you're going to have 3 meals today? Or would you let this stapler kind of dictate that, you're going to skip breakfast and for lunch you're only going to have like an apple slice and a spinach leaf and a cracker. And for dinner, you're just going to have like a drink or something. Like you would never let this stapler impact your decisions about food that you're going to eat, the quantity or the types of food that you're going to eat. Would you ever let this stapler impact your decision of whether or not you're going to go to the gym today, whether or not you're going to engage in movement? Would you ever let the stapler make you decide that you need to like put yourself through the most grueling, punishing workout? Would you ever like let the stapler say anything about your self-worth or your value as a human? Would you, I guess the stapler could bring a smile to your face. Like you could have appreciation for the fact that it helps you keep your life and your paperwork organized. But like, I don't think the stapler would be like, woo, today's going to be the best day ever. Or the stapler opposite of that would be like never making you think, I'm the worst person ever. God, what is wrong with me? I'm such a failure. I'm so disgusting because of this stapler. Like, no, it's just a device. So I could go on and on about the ways that we would never allow this stapler to impact our decisions, how our day is going to unfold, whether we're feeling positively or negatively about ourselves. Yet we allow the scale to do almost all of those things that I talked about. Not necessarily the scale, but like specifically the number on the scale. We let the number on the scale make us feel like we are doing quote unquote good or quote unquote bad. We let the number on the scale say something about our value or our worth as a human. We allow the number on the scale to elicit like an emotional impact. It can make us feel some type of way about ourselves, and we would never allow a stapler or a coffee cup or a fanny pack or any other silly device that's just like a tool to say anything about us as a human. And so one of the things I encourage my clients to do if they're triggered by numbers is, I kind of ask them the question, like, what would it be like if you didn't weigh yourself for a while? Or are you weighing yourself regularly? And a lot of times the answer is yes. And a lot of times people think like, well, I was told I was supposed to do that. I thought I was supposed to weigh myself regularly. And like knowing that number, like in their mind, they think it like, quote unquote, keeps them motivated or keeps them on track or like makes them feel some sense of control. In reality, our body weight, it's actually really normal and really healthy for our body weight to fluctuate. And it varies from day to day. It actually fluctuates throughout any given day. And I'm going to be a little bit vulnerable. I hope this isn't triggering to anybody. And please do not do as I did. But back in the day when I was really struggling with this food and body stuff, this is like so embarrassing to admit. When I was at my worst, I was probably weighing myself between 30 and 40 times a day. And that is so incredibly disordered and so incredibly unhealthy. And I let the number on the scale dictate so much about my eating choices, so much about my exercise choices. And I was really giving so much of my power away to a silly device that spits out a number that just measures your gravitational pull on Earth. That's all it is. It's your gravitational pull on Earth. And we have like our power. It's a limited resource. And I think we should be very protective of our power and like stingy with what we choose and don't choose to give our power away to. And if you are giving so much of your power away to the number on the scale, then you might want to just acknowledge you're giving too large of a portion of your number away to a stupid scale, and start doing things to take that power back. And for a lot of people, it can be so helpful to put the scale away. Even better if you can like smash it to smithereens with a sledgehammer while screaming curse words at it and then throw it in the garbage can and even take a picture or a video of you doing all of this stuff and post it on social media and please tag me in it. I will give you all of the love. Anyway, I'm getting off track. One time I saw this social media post, it said something about like, well, why would you weigh yourself when you could just roll around in broken glass and light yourself on fire? And that really resonated with me because when we weigh ourselves, we are sometimes, for people who give so much of their power away to that number, they are essentially like, it's a form of self-harm because it then emotionally impacts them greatly and it dictates how their day is going to unfold and the decisions that they make. So yeah, my question for you is like, if you are weighing yourself every day or more than that, what would it be like? Like if you're like, oh God, no, there's, like if that, like I could never not weigh myself at all. Like, okay, what would it be like to just like try to cut it down to one time a week? Or what would it be like to try not to let that number, like, do I feel like it's going to have, am I going to allow it to have an emotional impact? Like, am I going to allow it to make me feel better about myself and smile, or make me feel worse about, okay, it's probably not a day that I should step on the scale then. So this conversation could unfold, and ideally this will become multiple episodes because this is a complex topic, talking about our weight. But our weight, or gravitational pull on Earth, it doesn't really say much about our health. It doesn't tell us how much muscle mass we have. Our gravitational pull on Earth doesn't tell us what our blood pressure is. It doesn't tell us our cholesterol numbers. It doesn't tell us our blood sugar. It doesn't tell us whether or not we are struggling with cancer. It doesn't tell us whether or not we're struggling with like a mental health condition. It doesn't tell us much about our health besides our gravitational pull on Earth, especially if you're a woman. Your body weight is going to fluctuate at different times of the month. And like your body weight is supposed to fluctuate at different times of the month. And there's like a lot of things that impact our weight, like our hydration level impacts our weight. So like if we're dehydrated, that's going to impact our weight. If we happen to eat a meal that was high in sodium, like higher in sodium than normal. So like I love sushi, but like I know that, when you're dipping your sushi rolls in the yummy soy sauce, like that's more sodium probably than I typically eat. And like sometimes I kind of can feel that the next day, like in my fingers, like maybe a little bit of water retention. And it is just my body doing exactly what it is designed to do. And it's processing the sodium and getting back to homeostasis. I don't need to like step in and try to like autocorrect or over, like my body can do that with like, and that doesn't mean, it also does not mean I should avoid one of my favorite foods, which is sushi. It's like, no, just enjoy sushi sometimes, enjoy the soy sauce, and like my body knows exactly how to deal with this and how to compensate for it and how to like get back to regulated. So I'm at a place in my life where I don't want to say 100% of the time, but I've done a lot of work to heal all of the things. And I've done a lot of work to heal my relationship with the number on the scale. And so typically I'm at a place, and not everybody gets to this place, and this doesn't have to be your goal. You do not need to get to this place to have a better relationship with your food. But like I can at this point get on the scale and feel like the number does not have an emotional impact on me at all. It is just this neutral thing, no different than like if I was at the doctor's office and had my blood pressure taken and the nurse tells me what my blood pressure is, it doesn't say anything about my morality as a human. Like it's not going to make me feel more positive. I'm like, okay, like that's my blood pressure. Awesome. Like, okay, that's my weight. Neutral, like no emotional response. That is kind of when you could step on the scale at a doctor's office if it's really important for your doctor to know your weight. There are times when I'm like, no, you know what? I think that me knowing that exact number, that would maybe not be a great idea today. I'm feeling a little bit more sensitive, or I feel like that could potentially be triggering to me, or like I feel like if I knew that number, some disordered or unhealthy behaviors would start appearing. I'd be tempted to engage in these disordered behaviors again. I'm just going to avoid the scale at the doctor's office today. And this will become like a whole episode or multiple episodes, like how to avoid and have those conversations at the doctor's office, because it's like one of my very favorite things to talk about. I don't feel like as a patient you should ever have to teach your healthcare provider anything, but I end up spending time with certain clients who that is important to them because they are experiencing weight stigma in the healthcare setting, or they're being a victim of like fat phobia or size bias in healthcare. They do need to learn how to defend themselves. And there's very respectful ways to do that. And there are also ways you can do that very disrespectfully, because sometimes when you try the respectful way and it's not landing well and you're still being a victim of weight stigma, then we would maybe move on to like, okay, we tried to do this respectfully. Now we're moving on, and they no longer deserve my respect. Like I'm going to be very sarcastic or rude because they're just not understanding. And you also have the right to fire your healthcare provider and find a new one if you feel like that relationship has been harmed and there's just no going back. Okay, kind of digressing. So let's get back on track. Yep, numbers are triggering. And think about what it would be like to hide the scale. Okay, I think it's very important for me to acknowledge this. If you're a human on this earth, there's a very good chance you wish you weighed less. There's a very good chance you wish your body was smaller, even if you live in a relatively small body that's straight-sized. And if you live in a larger body, you probably wish your body was smaller. And what I want you to do, like I think we've done this before, where you like pack that up, put it in a box, duct tape that box shut and hide it from yourself. Essentially do that same thing with the scale. Like if you don't feel like you're at a place where you can throw it away and smash it to smithereens with a sledgehammer and put it in the dumpster, light it on fire first if you want. Maybe just hide it from yourself up in the top of your closet or under your bed in a bunch of Rubbermaid containers, or ask your partner or spouse or a friend to hide it from you for a while. And this really, really, really can help you heal your relationship with food and heal your relationship with your body, because your self-worth isn't based on the number on the scale. Your self-worth isn't based on your weight, but other ways in which numbers can be triggering. Moving on. Food labels or nutrition fact labels. They are full of numbers, and some of the numbers are talking about calories. There's numbers talking about protein and dietary fat and carbohydrates, and there's numbers talking about vitamins and minerals and nutrients. So that nutrition facts label contains a lot of numbers, and if you have a history of dieting, there's probably a pretty good chance at some point you may have done some like calorie restricted diet where you're supposed to count calories. And maybe if you've done some kind of Atkins or keto diet, you've been counting or limiting, restricting carbohydrate intake. If you've done Weight Watchers or WW, whatever they're calling themselves currently these days, you know how many points are in foods. If you are from like Europe or the UK, I have a lot of clients from there. They've done something called Slimming World, which I understand is kind of like European and UK's version of Weight Watchers. It's based on this point system, which is ultimately based on calories. So sometimes these numbers with food are so ingrained in your head, and you're like, yeah, I'm like not reading the nutrition fact label, but like it's all memorized. And like there's this like invisible calculator that's constantly like adding and subtracting. And I knew I had a calculator, like, and it was kind of like this, it started computing before I went to bed at night, and it was adding and subtracting and like, how many calories do I have left? How many points do I have left? And it's like, I promise you that if you were to quiz me on how many calories were in things, it's like, well, I don't even know anymore, which is crazy because I thought like, well, that's just in my head and I can't stop thinking about it. I can't get this calculator to turn off. But I promise that someday you will forget all of that knowledge, because there's so much more like useful and imperative and important knowledge that can replace that. And like, if you are going to count something with your food, count like on a 1 to 10 scale how much you enjoy the food that you're eating or how satisfying it is, or count the vitamins and the minerals and the nutrients that are in your food. Because just because, okay, like I'm thinking in my head of those 100 calorie snack packs, like if something has 100 calories, that doesn't mean it's like like it says nothing about the nourishment that it's going to give you. It says nothing about how, you know, much of a positive benefit it's going to have at a cellular level. So like it just says the amount of calories that are in it. And I mean, like it could be 100 calories of Cheetos, which is a fun food and a play food. And there's a very important place. Like I love Cheetos. I eat them regularly. The amount of calories that are in a food doesn't say anything about the benefits that that food is giving you. And remember, like joy and pleasure and human connection and going out to eat with friends and enjoy sharing food with people you love, like those are all benefits that we receive from food. So numbers on food can be triggering. The number on the scale can be triggering. Something else that I see being like incredibly triggering to people is like the number on your clothing size. So whether the tag on your clothing is a like numerical number, or even if it's not a numerical number, if it's like extra small, small, medium, large, extra large, double XL, on and on and on, we've kind of equated value or morality with those sizes equivalently to how we like equate value to the size like of the numerical number on our clothing, meaning that we feel like wearing typically the smaller numbers or small, extra small, medium is like quote unquote good or quote unquote better or says something about your value as a human versus as we get to the larger sizes in the size spectrum. And that can be really hard because could you imagine if clothing did not have size labels on it? And I'm envisioning myself at Target. And there's like, stacks of clothes kind of on racks and in tables. And if I like picked up a sweater or something and I was like, oh, this sweater is adorable. I love it. I want to go to the fitting room and try it on. You would have to pick up the entire stack and bring 20 of the exact same sweater in different sizes, but you don't know what size is what because they don't have like size labels on them. And you'd have to try on 20 sweaters. And so the reason why clothing has size labels on it is because we don't have to take 20, it's adding convenience to our life. It's making the process of figuring out what size is right for your current body easier and more convenient. So you can maybe take 1 or 2 or maybe 3 to the fitting room versus 20. And I don't know, I like when my body tries on like clothing in a fitting room, the tags, like I'm all scraped up and sometimes like they cause like scratches and welts on my body. And like, I would imagine me trying on like 20 different things. I would be like, look like I got in a fight with a lion at a zoo or something. So if you're giving a lot of value and you're allowing those sizes on your clothing to dictate something about your value as a human or your worth or feeling like it would be quote unquote better if you were wearing a smaller size clothing. And there's a form of body checking that people engage in where they typically have like one clothing item. It's usually not stretchy. It's typically like a pair of jeans or slacks that they like kind of will try on. And they kind of use this as a measurement for them to get feedback about like the current size of their body. Like what would it be like to just like throw that item you're using to body check away? Or if you just really focused on stop giving your power and your value away to the clothing sizes. And like, I had a thought one time I was having a conversation with a client, like, what if we changed the sizing instead of numbers to letters? Like, would that be more morally neutral? And I was like, actually, they kind of do this with women's bras. And it's funny because like if you're a woman and you're like an A cup, there's a pretty good chance you wish you were a larger size. And if you're a woman and you are like a larger size, so maybe like a D, double D, other letters in the alphabet, you probably wish you were a smaller size. And that just goes to show that like you're not happy with what you have. Like I have straight hair. I always wanted curly hair. Like I have brown hair. I always wanted blonde hair. It's like the grass is always greener on the other side of the fence. And can we just stop valuing ourselves differently because of clothing sizes and numbers and giving our value and our power away to numbers? And like, for people who are really struggling, sometimes I encourage them, like ask a friend, ask your parent, ask your partner to, when you get home from the grocery store, take everything out of the packages or cut that nutrition facts label off if you feel super triggered or tempted to look at it. I have gone to like clothing stores with people who are in a really bad place. Typically they're struggling with an eating disorder and kind of just like sat in the fitting room with them, or like, oh, you like this clothing item, let me grab a couple sizes, and kind of like, no, don't just try it on. Don't like look at the size label, like, move around in it, sit down in it. Does it feel comfortable? Okay. Like, and then when we purchase them, like rip out the sizes with, rip out the tags with a seam ripper or cut the tags off, because for some people that can really like wreak havoc on their healing journey if the sizes are changing. I've kind of been rambling. I'm trying to think if there's anything else I want to say about this. If you have been triggered by numbers, or if you do give your power away to the number on the scale, or like, you really feel like the tags on your clothing say something about your worth or value as a human, or, that calculator is constantly running regarding food, I really challenge you to take your power back and stop focusing on those numbers and do everything you can to support yourself and making less of those triggering numbers present in your life. And sometimes without doing this, taking these steps, it can be really challenging to heal our relationship with food and improve our body image. As always, I'm here to answer questions. Go to my website, emily-lavoie.com, to schedule a free consultation. I'm here to support you, and have a great day. That's the show. Thanks so much for listening. If you enjoyed it, I'd be so grateful if you take a minute to follow or subscribe to the podcast and leave a rating and review on Apple, Spotify, or whatever podcast platform you're listening on. It helps others to find the podcast and continue spreading this important information to more people who need to hear it. This podcast is made possible by paid supporters at patreon.com/makepeacewithfood. They're truly what keep this show going so that I can pay my assistant, editor, producer, and allow me to keep sharing all of this content and doing this important and needed work with you all. Go to patreon.com/makepeacewithfood to sign up for as little as $3 per month. Make Peace with Food is hosted by me, Emily LaVoie. It's produced and edited by Jake Lamore at Pathfinder. Thank you so much for your support.